Hey, what's going on, everybody? Steve here, Rake Profit. And today I am joined with my good friend Dan Metters, who went from just selling on eBay, flipping stuff via retail arbitrage over 5 years ago. He was making decent money doing that to now selling, I believe, over $33 million with wholesale. It might even be more because every single day they're selling thousands of dollars more. But yeah, wanted to bring on Dan to talk about how you could add wholesale to your business model. So if you're selling on eBay, if you're selling on Amazon, it doesn't matter if you're flipping books, doing retail arbitrage, flipping items from Walmart, Target, garage sales, thrift stores. Anybody can add wholesale to their business model. It doesn't take thousands and thousands of dollars to get started like people think. You don't have to do this to, sell millions of dollars. You can literally add a couple accounts to your business that makes, consistently a couple $1,000s a month just with a couple accounts. So, Dan, I want to introduce you to everybody. And if you guys can hear us, let us know in the comments right now. And I'll hand it over to Dan. What's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, brother. Thanks for having me on here. Super awesome to be on. And you know me, man. I love talking retail arbitrage. I love talking wholesale and kind of how you make that transition between. So hopefully the folks watching will get a bunch of value out of this, because I know that whenever I was doing retail arbitrage, like it was, we had a blast, man, and made a great deal of money doing it. But ultimately it was one of those things where it was, we were always searching for that ascension in the business model to give ourselves more of the owner feel as opposed to kind of an operator feel. So I've definitely been there, and I loved it. It's kind of wild, Steve. I actually was out buying stuff in a store last night. Like, even though that we do millions of dollars in wholesale, like once you have that bug and you just enjoy doing it, sometimes it's hard to turn it off. And you're at the store last night picking up some groceries, and I was like, oh my goodness. Like found some really cool stuff. So, it's one of those things where if you're selling on Amazon, I feel like you're doing it right. It's just about finding the method that works for you the best.
Exactly. Awesome. So we're going to dive into Dan's story, and we're going to share exactly how he went from just selling on eBay, flipping items on Amazon. He was doing a couple thousand a month to now doing, $2, $3, $4, $5 million a year. But before we dive into that, if you guys are watching right now live, or maybe you're watching the replay later on, let us know in the comments that you're here. Say hello. Let us know, do you know what wholesale is? Have you started wholesale? Are you interested in wholesale? Because that's what we're going to talk about first before we dive into Dan's story. Just to set the table, we're going to talk about what is wholesale, kind of the process of how it works, just to see if it's a fit for you, which I believe everybody should add wholesale to the business model, even if it's, a couple accounts. So if you are here live, let us know. I do see my main man, Kevin, in the house from Lakeland, Florida. Great to see you here. We got a bunch of people commenting. What's going on? Dana from Ohio. So if you are here right now, let us know in the comments and say hello. We've got Jameson from Tennessee coming and watching live right now. So it's really awesome to have everybody here. So be sure to smash that like button, and also let us know in the comments if you're here, if you have any questions. And one more thing before we get started. On July 8th at 2 p.m. Eastern time, Dan and his partner Dylan, we're going to be hosting a special one-time virtual wholesale event. It's going to be 100% online, and we're going to go in depth sharing exactly how to start wholesale, how to go through the process, how to land your first account, how to talk to manufacturers, how to set everything up. So this is going to be a really, really special training, and you're not going to want to miss that. So you can check out the first link in the description. You can go sign up for that right now. And with that being said, let's dive into, first and foremost, before we share your story of how you've gone from a couple thousand a month to 33 million, let's talk about what is wholesale, because I feel like there's like this idea around what wholesale is. And I wanted to discuss how you do it, because the way you do it is different. And I feel like this would break a lot of people's limiting beliefs about starting wholesale if they kind of understood how easy it was and what you do exactly.
Sure. And like you mentioned, there's a couple, if there's one way to do something, there's like 500 ways to do it, right? Like it's always that kind of wide open space. But specifically with wholesale, what we're talking about is setting up, creating a business and purchasing products directly from a business for the purpose of resale. So like, in that instance, think about the different businesses that you might interact with if you're doing wholesale. Like in some instances, you may be interacting with a liquidator, right? Like that's one form of wholesale, is kind of liquidation goods. Then you also have distributors. Like that's typically like your classic. Whenever somebody thinks about wholesale, they think about setting up an account with the distributor, and the distributor having lots of different lines and kind of being able to sell them products at wholesale prices. And honestly, that's how we got started, but it's not where we're at now. And then you have the next model, which is our model, and that's working directly with brands to become authorized sellers of their products. So, ultimately that's where we're at now, but I kind of want to talk about that progression because it's, almost everybody I've found kind of dips their toe in wholesale following that track, and ultimately gets to the end. But with wholesale, whenever we got started, we were doing retail arbitrage, and so it was, I know everybody in your audience knows the hustle. Like it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of rewarding work. Like you get to go out there, you get to be on your own and kind of find awesome treasures, and really actually, go home and relatively real time kind of make a profit on it, right? You list it, you get it in. Amazon's good at selling stuff, and you make money. Now for us, and it's like, I'm sure that other folks in this, in watching this or probably have the same kind of scenario, right? Like I had kids at home, and it was awesome to go out and find the goodies, but like, going out and finding the goodies and being away from my family for long periods of time. Like we live kind of in the middle of Kentucky. And, when I got started, I had left left is a strong one. I got fired from a pretty big job. Like, I had a 6-figure plus salary. So like I had, sizable commitments and things like that. So realistically, like we didn't have the opportunity to just kind of sit around locally. Like we don't have enough stores to source from to be able to kind of support the lifestyle and bills that we already had. So we had to drive farther out, and like our closest target's like an hour and a half away. So it was constantly just on the road, like buying inventory, but we did really good. Like we did almost $1 million our first year doing retail arbitrage, but it was just all the time. It was an all the time kind of thing. And then I remember it was, we had talked about it, just trying to find other models, and we experimented a little bit. And I remember the first time we got invested in wholesale, and it's kind of when this is where I want to, I feel like I can help people understand the model really well. And, we had a distributor. We'd set up with a few distributors actually, and we were buying product, and some was doing great and some was doing not great. And, but overall it was kind of working. We were starting to see it. And, but ultimately, like it always felt like we were just kind of playing wholesale arbitrage, right? Like, a lot of the vendors that we worked with, they didn't have consistent inventory on items. Like they would get closeouts or kind of seasonal things, and just be able to sell that. And not only that, like there wasn't a ton of margin. There wasn't a ton of margin in with distributors. Like you always hear that whenever you hear people talk about wholesale. And it's kind of one of those misconceptions, but it's one of those misconceptions that is like based in something right. You know what I mean? Like, people always think about wholesale having smaller margins. Like, you go out in the store, you buy something and you take it and sell it. Like typically what you're doing is you're finding an item that's not available, or there's limited availability or something like that. And you're capitalizing on a big price difference. Well, with wholesale, like, it's not like retail arbitrage. You don't see as many like giant races to the bottom and stuff like that, but like the prices are pretty consistent. So it means like your margins are generally going to be pretty consistent. So if you start with a low margin on a product, like you're probably going to have like a pretty low margin on the product. Like it's, it's just kind of how it works. But ultimately, like whenever we were in that distributor space, like we had went to ASD and a couple of other events and stuff, but we couldn't get any real traction. And the biggest thing that we were having trouble with is when you're working with distributors, like a lot of your value to them is your ability to place a bigger order, right? Like, and that's one of the things that they really, you work with distributors, they're constantly pushing their, order volume or order discounts with volume and stuff like that. And it's always just trying to push you to that next level. But ultimately, I didn't think we were capitalized for that, right? Like, setting up accounts was easy enough. Like to set up an account with distributors, it was easy enough. Like most require $500 minimum orders, $250 minimum orders. But ultimately, to kind of like set myself apart and kind of compete with the other people that were buying from them, like it required much bigger orders, and I just never got preferential treatment. You know what I mean? It was always like when I wanted to find a product, it was like, I better be first to find it, because if I'm not, there's literally no chance that I'm going to get a shot at buying this. And so, from there, it was, we were trying to we still wanted that same model, that longevity where, we're not going into stores every single day and can kind of start to build and scale our business. Because, even though we hadn't been doing it, like, we understood the concept. Like, whenever you work for yourself, it's an amazing feeling. But as long as you work for yourself and by yourself, you can only grow it so big. Like, there's only so much time in a day. There's only so much that Steve can do, only so much that I can do. And you kind of get to that point where you just, there's not much more. Like, there's just not much more you can get. And we kind of, looking at that, we were like, 30 years, let's think 30 years down the line. Is this something I want to be doing? Like, am I going to have the energy to be like going in and out of stores and kind of doing all that stuff? And honestly, our goal, when we started putting all that into context, was I need to build a real business. I need to build a business that operates without me, can scale without me, and that ultimately I can drive and kind of get to the level that I want to. So, we ultimately kind of failed at the distributor model of wholesale. Like, it wasn't a great fit for us. And then actually just literally stumbled into our model. Like, I remember it really vividly. And I was looking at this product, and if you've ever looked, or if you've ever contacted a distributor or a wholesaler, like, that they send you these giant lists of products, right? Like, you'll get a 45-page like, physically, sometimes in the mail, we get these giant 500-page catalogs. Like, it's absolutely wild. And it's just kind of like going through there looking for a needle in a haystack. Like, it's just like you look at this product, you run the numbers, you're going to make like 85 cents a unit, and it's like, not good enough. And then, you stick it kind of on your list to negotiate with later if you find some other stuff, and you just pilfer through, and it's a nightmare, right? Like, it's a nightmare just trying to find a product that is actually good. And I was sitting at my desk, and I was pretty dejected. Like, I'd been through a bunch of catalogs, like, and hadn't really found anything in quite a while. And I remember picking up a product and was like, I wonder, why can't I just buy this? Like, why can't I just go buy this product? It would be so much easier if, instead of trying to find what I wanted to sell, if I just started with what I wanted to sell and found it. So I had this brilliant idea that I was going to call that company and ask. I called and I was like, hey guys, I'm an online retailer interested in carrying your guys' products. What distributor would I need to go to buy it? And they were like, well, you could go to a distributor, or like, we're happy to set you up an account and sell direct. And as simple as it sounds, like, I'd never honestly thought about that. I'd never thought, for a couple of different reasons. And I think this is like a good learning point for people. Like, I'd always heard to work with manufacturers directly that you had to have astronomically big opening orders. Like, the function of a distributor in the marketplace is to make small amounts of products more accessible to stores. So, like, they function to serve retail stores and brick and mortars and your mom and pops and just offer them that wider range of products. Like, realistically, if you run a store, you might have to set up with two distributors and be able to outfit your whole store. That's kind of the idea. But think about that, right? Like the vast majority of brick and mortars don't sell products the same way that we do. Like, brick and mortar may sell five of this product in a month and 2 of that product in a month. And, maybe this one didn't even sell. Like, like retail stores are, it's based on their foot traffic and a lot of stuff like that. Right. And whereas online, I mean, and on Amazon, you can sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of a product in a month, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like, it's just such a big demand. So whenever we, our goal was to find ways to facilitate that demand, but ultimately with distributors, it just wasn't possible. So whenever we went and I'm having that conversation with them, my expectation is that they're going to say, they set up, they're like, well, we're happy to set up an account for you. And I was like, all right, what's your minimum order? That was the first question. And then I literally couldn't get it out of my mouth fast enough because I was just almost disqualifying myself from being able to work with them. Right. Like, I'm not going to be able to afford this. And the lady said $250. And it was like, wait, so you guys have the same minimum orders as the distributor? Like, that's what I'm thinking, right? Like, why am I ordering from distributors when I can just order from the brands? And then I asked for a price list, and she sent over the price list, and the prices were better. Like, think about it. Whenever you're ordering from a distributor or whenever you're doing that, like, they're not they're not a charitable organization. Like, they have to make money. So how do they do that? Like, they mark the products up, and it's almost like a convenience tax, right? Like, Steve, you're only going to order 6 of these and 5 of that and 8 of this. So we're going to have to charge you this little bit of convenience tax so you don't have to go order it from 45 different people. And that makes sense to us as consumers. But whenever we put it in context that, you can really just place regular distributor, minimum orders, that $250 minimum orders directly with the manufacturer, like, the game changed for us. Like, I'll be honest, like, in that moment right there, whenever they said yes, gave me that price sheet, and I saw the prices, I thought, I was like, wow, this is, we're going to have the biggest business in the world in no time. Like, it was just that easy. Like, and, we ultimately ran into some other complications, but, that's the model. Working directly with brands to become authorized sellers of our product is the model that we're in now. And, one of the most, I guess, the things that give us the most level or the highest level of solace or comfort is the fact that, on 100% of the products that we carry, we are authorized sellers of those. Like, the brand knows that we sell those products. They support us selling those products, and they want us to be on those listings. So, if we ever have a problem or anything like that, it's easy to get resolved because we're working directly with the brand. I talked a lot there telling you about the model, but
yeah, that's great. So to kind of recap from what I hear from you is essentially what you're doing is you're going to a brand, right? So for example, a brand such as Nike, but you're not going to like the big brands. A lot of people don't realize if you ever search for something on Amazon, it could even be a toothbrush or a certain type of gel or, a pet accessory. There's hundreds of brands that you've never heard of. And if you take a look at the ranks and the feedback on some of these products are selling $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month, and you've never heard of them before. So what Dan's doing, if I understand correctly, is you're reaching out to these brands and you're building a relationship with them, similar to a distributor, but you're obviously getting those better prices. So you're building that relationship. You're becoming an authorized seller. And with that permission, you're ordering directly from the brand. And here's the thing about selling on Amazon. You can't just go and sell any brand. A lot of times you have to get ungated. You have to get approved. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I've done this before. The way to get approved for brands is to get a direct invoice from them. So you build that relationship, you get the invoice, you get the better pricing, you purchase directly from them. And the reason this is benefiting you is because you're able to get tens, if not hundreds of thousands of these products coming directly to you versus having to go out to Goodwill, Savers, Salvation Army, Target, Walmart, and have to find these items and beat the competition. Essentially what you're doing is you're front loading all the work. You're building your business by building the relationships with these brands and then having them ship directly to Amazon, which we didn't talk about, but you can have these brands ship the items directly to Amazon. You don't even have to touch it, which is really cool. And another thing I found interesting, and I wanted to share for the people who are new, is you don't need $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 to buy from a wholesaler, which a lot of people would think. That's what I thought when I first learned about this from you over 4 years ago, is I thought, I'm going to need $25,000 to buy an order. But literally you can do this for a couple $100s to get started, which is really, really cool. So one of the questions I have for you, for the people who are watching now, and if you guys are, interested in this and you're fascinated by this, just like I was when I first learned about it, let us know. But for the people who are new, do you need any special type of business license, or do you need, to have a website? Do you need to have certificates? Can anybody do this for the average eBay, Amazon seller now who's doing retail arbitrage, or do you need to get some type of like LLC or certification or whatnot?
I mean, it's one of those things, right? Like whenever you start to scale and grow your business, and whenever you're working with brands or distributors, ultimately they want to see that you're a business. Like they require, they have certain requirements on their side to make sure that you're a business. Like, think about this. If Steve the consumer could just go shop at a distributor, why would you ever go to a retailer? Right? Like, so ultimately what they're going to look for is some evidence that you are a company. Now, typically what we see in our community is most people set up an LLC, and that's how they kind of meet that requirement. And then you get a resale certificate and you're off to the races. Now that's not required. Like you can set up there's different types of company setups that you can do, but ultimately you will need to be a business and get a resale certificate if you're based in the US. And that's, a resale certificate is kind of like a driver's license for a business, right? It's like it certifies that you're a business and shows them that you're buying products for resale and kind of meets their tax obligations. So ultimately, yes, you'll need to be a business to be able to engage in wholesale, but it's one of those things that, setting up a business takes an hour at most, like an hour if you don't know what you're doing. If you're good at stuff like this, it probably takes you like 15 or 20 minutes to go through and kind of file with your state and do it. And it's a cheap process, unless you're in California. Like California is almost like another country, and sometimes they get crazy with taxes and stuff. But every other place in the world is pretty dang cheap to fill out one of these. And
yeah.
You asked about like a website and stuff like that. And
yeah.
Like for us, we're some of the folks that always believe in if you're going to do something, kind of do it right? Like position yourself for success. Like, do you have to have a website? No. Would I tell anybody that wants to do wholesale to get a website? Like, yes, because it's going to increase your approval rates and things like that. Now, a lot of folks, when they hear like website, they're, oh my gosh, Steve, that is terrifying. Right. And it's just not the case. Like the websites that we use are very, very simple. I mean, it's just a website showing, giving good information about our companies and how we can help brands. Like, I mean, on here, I can probably tell one that people could go check out, and it's like $100 million company. Like if you guys want to check it out, it's like big-fly.com. The Big Fly has an awesome little website that's pretty simple and gives a good explanation of what you might need. It's nothing crazy.
Yeah, the cool thing about this business model is it takes a bit more work to get started and get set up, compared to thrifting. You literally go out to the thrift store, find it, sell it that day, make money that day. But one of my buddies, Dan, this was probably about 3 years ago, and he had gone through some of your training, and he had learned a lot from you and Dylan. I think it was probably within the first 3 months, he landed his first wholesale account, right? And he was doing it part-time. He was working a job full-time. So, some people, they go in 100% and they could land their first account in a couple of weeks. He landed this one account, and he ended up sourcing this big electronic product. I thought it was, when he told me about it, I was like, that thing's not going to sell, but I didn't know what I was doing back then. And it was a really, really big item. And every time he sold this one item, he made about $100 profit. I think it was within probably about 5 or 6 months. He had built this, he had just one account with one wholesaler, and he was selling one product. He was making $2,000 a month profit, $2,000 a month profit off of this one item. And all he would literally do, and this is when I got hooked to it. And I'm like, man, I love going out thrifting. I love going on the treasure hunts, but he landed one wholesale account, one product, making $2,000 a month. And all he had to do was just place an email every single time he ran out of inventory. They shipped it directly to the Amazon warehouse for him. And I was like, this sounds way too good to be true. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because a lot of people think, you got to spend all this money, land all these accounts, build all these relationships. But for anybody, literally the clothing seller, the shoe seller, the book seller, you could learn this. You could land a couple accounts and make a couple $1,000s, really spending 5, 6, 7 hours a month at times. Now, there's going to be more upfront work, learning and getting set up, and you set up your business and you've got to get, and set up different things. I'm not trying to make it sound like it's as easy as thrifting because it's different, but talk a little bit about that. Once you land a wholesale account, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, the way I like to think about it from the retail arbitrage perspective, because like you said, there's a certain level of upfront work, and it's required with wholesale that you don't typically see in retail arbitrage, but it mirrors really similarly, actually. Whenever you do retail arbitrage, how many times have you went into a store and walked out with nothing or almost nothing? A lot, right? And you just kind of take that as and it's just part of it. It's just part of it. But the fact of the matter is it's still time and work, right? Like it's time and work and energy to walk into a store, scout around and not find profitable products. So when you think about it, it's just typically that you kind of brush over it because like as retail arbitrage, we focus on the products that we buy and then how we sell them and our profits in between, right? But with wholesale, like the difference isn't that the amount of work, because I think it's probably, as much work doing retail arbitrage. It's just different work, right? And it's kind of moved to a different part of the process. So when in the wholesale, like it's, our focus is finding that account. And on that webinar that Steve mentioned, that's what we're really going to be doing is we're going to go through and show you guys how we identify great products, how we identify products that are going to sell for long periods of time and ultimately land those accounts. So if that gets your blood up, you definitely have to get in there. Like it's going to be super awesome, particularly for the people who don't have a lot of experience with wholesale too. Like if you're dabbling, it's going to be great. But ultimately, what Steve was kind of referring to is, you do that work. Like I have to go through and look on Amazon to find out the products that are good. I have to kind of run my analysis to make sure that the product's what I want to see. But ultimately, once I do that and I get set up, like my work is relatively done, right? Like I don't have to, I don't have to find that product again. Like Steve said, after he set up, his buddy set up that account, he is, he's making a call once a month and he's saying, hey guys, we would love more of your awesome inventory. And that's it. He's sourced that product, right? Now it's just how many more of those things can I add to it? And whenever you saw, whenever you look at our company progression, the first year we moved from wholesale, like the previous year we had done $1.2 million in sales. And, that was certainly nothing to sneeze at. And then the first year that we moved to wholesale, we did 3.6 million. Why? And it was because I didn't have to go find my next product to sell. Like once I found a product, I was able to sell it over and over and over. And it was just about adding to my portfolio. Whenever we think of our wholesale accounts, it's like a portfolio at this point. Like we like to keep a good amount of diversity, and that's, just like any business wants, right? A good amount of different income streams. But ultimately, that's the difference is when you're doing retail arbitrage, you're selling a product. Whereas whenever I have a wholesale account, I have an income stream because it's something that I can reliably make money from over and over and over. I think it's the best way I can probably describe it.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. And another cool thing about wholesale, which intrigued me, and I learned this from you and Dylan, is the cool thing is, like, let me put it this way. When you find an item at a thrift store or at an auction, I mean, it's kind of worth what it's worth, and it's a one-time thing. Unless you find like a lot of like 50 of them, then, you sell it or whatever and you make your money. But with wholesale, one of the things that I do, and one of the things I learned from you, and I know a lot of your students and people have done this, is you find listings that are kind of, how do I say it, beat up. Like, who here has ever looked at like an eBay listing and like the pictures are really bad, the SEO is horrible, there's like 2 pictures, there's no item specifics, and you're like, you know what? if I could just help them out, even though you probably wouldn't do that because there's nothing in it for you, but if I could just help out that seller and like teach them how to do the item specifics, how to take better pictures, they could probably make like $60 on that Salvatore Ferragamo tie versus 30. And the same thing applies on Amazon. But what you're doing is you're actually helping these brands to fix their listings, because brands and manufacturers, they're in business to literally just like build their brand.
Stuff.
What's up?
They make stuff.
They make stuff.
Most of them aren't marketers. They're makers.
Exactly. And they're not internet marketers. They don't understand all of that. So what you can do is you could build relationships with them by helping them to improve their listings, helping them to improve their specifics, their SEO and all of that. And guess what? That one listing of that product that's maybe only making $8,000 a month and you're getting a share of that and maybe you're making $200 profit off of it. You can double their sales by just adding more pictures, improving the pictures, improving the SEO. There's a ton of things that Dan could talk about. But guess what? When you help them, you've just boosted your paycheck from $200 a month profit to $600 with just a little bit of work. Do you want to talk about that? Because that was one of the things that just like blew my mind when I learned about it.
No, I mean, it's you want to talk about a way to a brand's heart, and it's actually helping them, right? Like how do you go from a client to being a teammate or a partner, right? And that's the way we honestly consider ourselves with every brand that we work with. And we're really integrated into their businesses, and we do everything in our ability to help them. But you mentioned it. I love ugly, man. I love ugly, and it's particularly in Amazon. And whenever whenever we're going through our listings, one of the things that we're looking for is that this company has the ability to be helped. And one of the things that I've found over the course of years is that, whenever you go to a brand to sell something and you want to become a customer, you have a much different response when you offer to help them first, right? Whenever you lead with value, you're much more likely to be able to secure a relationship. So that's it's always been paramount in our strategy to find, listings where we can drastically change, we can change a few things and drastically change their sales. Like, to give you an example of how much this can matter, our big, we have a couple of companies that we work with that, we make a lot of money with them, to be, just brutally honest. Like, just a couple of accounts that make over $500,000 a year. And, you know where those accounts started? They didn't started at $500,000 a year accounts. They started as accounts that made us $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month. And it was, but ultimately what we did is, with those products, we focused on delivering a good experience. We, how can we help them? And we're really good about communicating it too. It's like, I talked to them about how, changing their copy in their listing might increase sales, and just having a good conversation. We were one of, say, 35 sellers at the time, like, just junky listing, but the product was great. And that's one of the things is if you're looking at a product on Amazon and it's got great reviews and you see that it just doesn't have any good pictures and the listings terrible. One thing I can tell you is that product can ultimately sell a lot better, a lot. Like, if they have a great product and you put the marketing behind it, that's whenever great things happen. But these were all things that we learned over the course of time. Like, it's not like you have to be an Amazon genius. I mean, I learned about copy. I went to that company and I was like, hey guys, like, if you would let me rewrite your copy, I have a feeling that we could increase sales by maybe like 10% or so. They had no idea, and they were like, nobody's offered to help us. Like, I would love for you to do it. So I worked and rewrote the listing and bullets. Like, how many people out here could write some bullet points, like reading a website and just kind of going through it? Anybody could, right? But like, ultimately when we did it, and they went from, 4-word bullet points or missing bullet point to having something tangible that was, related to the product, a better title. We actually got them to take us pictures and send them. It's like, one of the things on their listing was their pictures were terrible. And it was like, hey, do you guys actually have these for like your website and stuff? And they said, yeah. So we plugged that stuff in. That product in the past year and a half is number one, they made us exclusive. because of all the things that we're doing, right? Like all these things took us 30 minutes of actual work time, like literally like 30 minutes of actual work time. But, it was important enough to them that they wanted to make us an exclusive seller. And, since that point, that brand has went from making us $2,500 a month to making us $60,000 a month. Like that's the level of impact you can have on Amazon whenever you start working with these brands and kind of find those, down and dirty products that are great products, but don't have, the care and attention that they need.
Yeah, and this is why I love that you really are looking at it from like a partnership when you're helping these brands and working with them, because when you partner with them and you really come from a place of value and you're helping them, if they grow their business, you get to grow along with them. And when they add new products, when they add new items to their catalog, maybe they create variety packs. Someone was asking about that, which we could talk about. You get to be the first one on that listing. And one of the things that you guys do that I learned about was really becoming like that go-to, I don't know if you want to call it seller or go-to partner. And when these brands have one person that they trust, an Amazon seller that's providing really good service, they'll stop working with other people. They'll actually start kicking people off the listing. And I know that's something that you and Dylan do all the time. And that's huge, because the more sellers that are on the listing, the more sellers that these brands are allowing to sell, ultimately the less profit you're going to make based on the buy box rotating and whatnot. So if you could become that exclusive seller, or maybe one of 3 sellers, and you convince them, hey, stop selling to everybody else, which is possible, you literally grow with the business. And that's for me, that's the ultimate business, because you get to grow your income without having to spend more and more time. All you have to do is just order more items and ship them in to the warehouse. So let me get into some questions right now. If you cool with some questions, Dan?
Yeah, heck yeah, man.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Nikki is asking, when you were doing this through Amazon, are you purchasing like you would be thrifting as a wholesale business?
Right. We're not doing drop shipping. We are, it's the same concept where we buy the physical inventory, have that product shipped to Amazon, most often by the manufacturer. So like, I think it's more than the last time I talked to you, Steve. It's at least 85% of our products are direct now, maybe more than that. I don't know of anything that we're still. I'm trying to think of any products that we're still shipping to third party, but almost everything is going direct at this point. So yeah, Nikki, like we would buy that product from the manufacturer, have them send it to our Amazon account.
Yeah, and a lot of people might be wondering, like, well, how do you like contact and how do you talk to people? And the way I do it, and the way my mentors have done it, which is you and Dylan, my buddy Brad, I've got a whole bunch of friends who do wholesale. It's split into 2 ways. I really like to send emails, but the thing with emails is they don't convert as good as phone calls, right? Getting on the phone with them and talking to them and building that relationship works best. I have friends of mine who have a team. They don't send any emails. They don't talk. They literally have someone on their team that sends out a whole email. So they have a script. You can build scripts and you can send emails out. And essentially the goal of that email is to set up a phone call. And then you go to the next step and you set up the phone call. Then you build the relationship. So all of this could be automated. You could do it yourself. You could build it out with the team, but ultimately you just find who the company is on Amazon, which you could find easily just by Googling it. And I have a whole spreadsheet. And essentially what we do is we use tactical arbitrage. We use a bunch of softwares and we find just a crap load of products that are doing well. And then my team of virtual assistants, they go through, they pull all that information. We have a spreadsheet that has their company name, their phone number, the products that we're going after. And then it's just a step-by-step process. And ultimately the goal is to get accepted to sell the products or to jump on a phone call. I don't know. Do you do it any different?
No, I mean, I think that's, my pro tip here would be always start with an email. Always. Like, it takes a lot less time to start with an email, and ultimately you get to see a lot more information, right? Like if I send them an email and they say, hey, Dan, you're approved. Here's your wholesale account. Like I know that they're approving everybody. And that's something that may be a concern down the line. Like, if they deny me, that's also just good information and I get to work through it. So I love starting with there, but you're right. Like, going to a phone call is going to convert a lot more, but you don't want to be calling every single brand you see. Like it's just not practical or feasible. You got to kind of narrow down. So I love starting with an email too. I saw that one pop up. Oh, how do you find the right product? That one is that's a great question, and honestly, it's a lot easier than you think. Like most people, whenever they think of the right product, they try to think of something that they know and are like and are use. And I'll just be brutally honest. I will literally sell anything. I don't care what it is. Like as long as it's not illegal. Like just, I think you're muted, Steve.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize. I was going to say, this guy sells some of the most ridiculous items ever. I can't even say it, but
No, I mean, I've sold everything from candy to pet products, like weird pet products, like compostable dog poop bags to sexual toy, like sexual wellness products. Like, I mean, honestly, if it's on Amazon, I've pretty well sold it. So for us, the right product, contextually is a product that I can make money from. And what we're looking for is we're going to go really deep into this on that July 8th webinar. So like make sure to jump in there because we're going to like do some of this live and kind of show you exactly what we're looking for. But the kind of a quick rule of thumb is I don't like products that are sold by Amazon. Like I don't like you always hear that. Can you compete with Amazon? It's like I don't want to.
I never do.
Right. Like I just don't care to. There's easier people to pick fist fights with. So like I stay away from products with Amazon. I like we absolutely love products that, and this one's going to sound interesting. We love products that sell numerous times per month. And it's like, well, what's numerous, Dan? And it kind of depends, right? Like it depends on what your target is. And we'll kind of like go over some of that information, like how you define your target and stuff. But realistically, I may sell less of a $500 product than I would sell of a $20 product. And I kind of like try to keep that in scale. But ultimately, what I'm looking for is products that sell. Like I never want to buy something to learn if it sells. That's terrible. It'd be terrible for your cash flow. And the last thing is that it is sold by more than 3 sellers. Why? And it's like we talk about exclusivity, and it's like, but wait, what? Like you want multiple sellers, and I love multiple sellers because it shows me that they're open to working with sellers, right? And in general, like if I see Steve and Nikki and Lexi and Andrew selling a product, like I know that brand sells to sellers, and it gives me a way to start the conversation. What we always have to remember, like in this, I think this is with any business, is kind of be patient, right? Like you have to have a level of patience to you. So I'm not, whenever I set up with an account or find a new product, my goal is not on day one to become exclusive with them. Like I would love that, but it's just not practical. It's like asking somebody to marry you on the first date. I mean, any brands there's not going to be a brand that does it. You just kind of look silly. So what we do is I want to be just one of every, I want to be a person that's just getting a piece of the buy box. Like I just want to be one of 10 sellers, or I don't care how many. And then through value, I show them why I'm the best option every single time and get them to start working directly with us and a one-on-one or a one-on very few capacity. So it's a long road to hoe to get to an exclusive, but it's well worth the trip. And you get to make money the whole way through. You just have to be patient and realize that, it's kind of that crawl, walk, run scenario every time you start a relationship.
Yeah. And you want to hear something crazy that a lot of people are going to shake their head to, but it's true. When my team and I are reaching out to brands, one of the biggest red flags to me is if they say yes instantly. Oh yeah, sure. We'll sell to you instantly. And you might be thinking like, well, Steve, why would you not want them to say yes? Because if they're just saying yes to me instantly and I haven't even jumped on a call, I haven't sold them on it, I haven't even talked about value props or anything, how many other wholesalers are they going to sell to? Like, I don't want to jump on a listing with 50 other sellers, right? It's the same with, if you're, it could work, but very rarely. Like I like to usually stick to like 5 to 15. Sometimes I've had more. I don't know what your sweet spot is, Dan. I know it's different for everybody, but I don't want 1 million sellers.
I like fewer sellers, but I mean, it's one of those things where you can, the one product, I wasn't kidding. Like there were 35 sellers on that product, and it just had a good enough volume that it supported having 35 sellers. And like, we were still making, all those sellers were making some amount of money. So, I'm with you. I want it. I feel like you have to get a good equity of sales to make it worth it. But if you can get that equity, like you can always win them over by adding value.
Yep, exactly. Okay, cool. Let's here's a question from Lexi asking, what are the 2 benefits of attending the webinar? Maybe 3 biggest, but you're gonna have to give 4, Dan. But what Lexi's talking about is we actually have a free it's a virtual wholesale event. It's going down on July 8th. And what we're going to be talking about is how to land wholesale accounts. So we're talking about how to do wholesale now, what the business model is. But what we're going to actually do is walk you through step by step how to find products, how to land your first account. So maybe you could touch on that a little bit. And again, for people wondering where you can sign up, the link's in the description.
I mean, I think honestly, the biggest benefit is if you are, if you're selling things online, this is a way to, particularly if you're selling things online and you're using like a retail arbitrage model where you go and get product, or an arbitrage model where you go and get product, this is a way to scale your business. Like having products coming to you in a consistent, regular fashion is a way to grow your business. Like, the way we were able to grow our business from, $1 million a year to $7-8 million a year was through systems and processes. Like Steve said, he has, whenever he's looking for wholesale accounts, he has a team of people that go through, they find products, those emails are being sent. Same thing. Like right now, while I'm talking to Steve, I have a team of people that are scouting. I have a team of people who are sending emails to brands. And why is that possible? And it's because every single thing in our business can be done from a computer screen and can be trained. And, it doesn't typically have that with the retail arbitrage stuff. But, in terms of other benefits, like we're going to show you, from our perspective, what makes an awesome product, what makes a product worth buying. Like for me, it's not about the category it's in. I could care less. Like, when you do wholesale, you're not restricted by category. Like Amazon asks you, like if I want to sell something in health and personal care or whatever, they ask for invoices. I have those with wholesale. So like there's not a restriction on what I sell. It's about what makes a product great. And that's what we're going to be talking about there. So, I think we're at 2 benefits. Another benefit is we're going to show you how to create those relationships with brands. Like that's one of the biggest mysteries is, how do I get started? Like, how do I find a brand? Which is pretty easy. Like I can tell you that here, like we use a lot of Google. we Google the company and research some information about them. But what am I researching and how do I contact them? Right. That's the kind of thing we're going to be going over on that. So that's 3 webinars and then, or 3 benefits. A 4th benefit would be, you get to meet Dylan. Like, and it's kind of funny when we do these webinars, like every single time, like, Dylan he's just kind of like our wild man in the background that just thinks and comes up with cool stuff all day long. But he's going to be going over some of the top strategies that he's used to land accounts. Like, so, again, it's all predicated like the value or benefit of something is predicated on your interest in it. But so if you're interested in selling more stuff online or learning a new strategy, I think, honestly, it's probably a can't miss event, and the ticket price is going to be well worth the admission. It's free, right, Steve?
Exactly. So sometimes I feel like we should charge for these things just because, like,
I have
so much value.
Last winter we ran one of these. It was $50, and I mean we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. It's gonna be the same material. Same kind of material and presentation. So, I mean, it's absolutely worth charging for.
I want to touch on this really quick because I want to make this point very clear. When you're doing wholesale versus, thrifting and retail arbitrage, the way that Dan and Dylan teach, the way that I do it is I don't even touch the products. Yeah, sometimes depending on the brand, if they don't want to ship to Amazon, you can ship directly to a third-party prep center, or you could ship to yourself to do an inspection before you send it to Amazon. But you literally, if you don't have any storage or you're thinking, I got to get a storage unit or a warehouse, you don't need to. These guys back in the day, this was probably, 3-4 years ago, you guys had a huge warehouse. This is before you really understood the value of third-party prep centers and just shipping directly. You probably had some limiting beliefs at the time, like, oh, I got to touch it. It's not going to be what they say, da, 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 da. But yeah, you guys have grown so much from that point.
No, I mean, it's a great question. And I love seeing that question because it tells me a lot about you, Nikki. It tells me that you have, you probably have products in your house and may not like it as much. But I remember when I did retail arbitrage, like we had, junk in our house all the time. When we transitioned to wholesale, like Steve said, we had a warehouse. And a lot of that was I had this belief that I could process so much cheaper and it was just worth it to do everything ourselves. So that meant like hiring employees and checking and, trying to build processes internally to process products. And eventually what I realized is using the third-party prep centers gave me a lot more time and energy to focus on better serving brands. And whenever we stopped using a warehouse and transitioned to our third-party prep center, even though we were paying more per item to have them processed, like our sales and profits literally went up by 50%. And why? And it's because I got a whole lot more exclusives because I was spending more time talking to my brands and less time monkeying around with product. Like that was the whole big difference. Paying more money still made more money because I had more time. So with wholesale, like, if that's a concern, I've literally not seen a product that we carry in 3 years. I've not seen one.
That's crazy.
So I don't, everything is processed by either Amazon themselves or like Steve said, a third-party prep center for us.
Are your items coming from overseas? Because, as everybody knows right now, the whole supply chain, everything's been crazy. I know things are starting to improve. How are things being affected right now during these crazy economic times and just the challenges that are going on all over the world?
I mean, it's like the fortunate part for us is that all but 2 of our brands are U.S. based now. Like they're U.S. based brands. Now that still doesn't mean that they still had some awkward, like we had one instance where one of the products we carry, we sold so much. We literally sold so much in like it was March that it was crazy. They ran out of materials to make their lids with. And so that was an adventure, kind of watching them try to source those products from everywhere. But all the products that we carry personally, except for those 2 brands, are sourced domestically. So, we don't have the big giant crazy wait times and things like that.
Awesome. All right. I'm going through some questions. Oh, here's another great question that just came through from Dana. If a company already has a store on Amazon, I assume that is not a good product to start with.
In a lot of instances, you would assume very wrong. We can talk about more of this kind of stuff on that July 8th webinar, because like you start getting into the weeds, right? If they're the only seller of their product, like if let's say I was looking at products in this little AHA drink, and AHA was the only seller, AHA brands or whatever, like I'm probably not going to reach out to them. But if there's 10 sellers plus AHA, that tells me something very important. Why are they there? Why did they choose to list their products? And more often than not, it was because they had to correct a listing issue or something like that, which means I can provide a ton of value to them. So if I see the brand selling along with a bunch of other sellers, I love that. And it typically can lead to a really good conversation.
Excellent. Okay, we're getting to the last couple questions because we're almost at that hour point. Want to stay true to my time. People were asking about prep centers. We'll definitely talk more about that. And I'll make some more videos as well on my channel separately talking about prep centers. It's really, really simple. In a nutshell, you just build a relationship with one. I could recommend some, and you just ship all your items to them. They match up with your spreadsheets. It's pretty easy and simple to do. Let's see. Are there any other final questions that anybody has? Are there any final thoughts, Dan, that you want to put out there before, it looks like a lot of people are registering for the free training. And again, you can click the link in the description to join our free virtual wholesale event And this isn't just a webinar. This isn't just a training. This is an event, because we've got a really, really awesome crew on board. We've got Dan and Dylan. We've got an amazing presentation. We've got a ton of Q&A. We've got examples. We've got walkthroughs of exactly what to do, how to get started, how to find a product, how to land that first wholesale account, biggest mistakes to avoid. And we're going to just have a ton of Q&A, a ton of information. And the big difference between just like a normal YouTube video versus this virtual wholesale event is it's structured very, very well. There's been tens of hundreds of hours that have gone into building out this presentation. And it's put in a way that allows you to not only be able to easily digest it, but also to be able to take action on it, on the important things. Because who has ever attended a webinar or just a normal training, and by the end of it, you're like, there's like 87 things that I have to do. Like, there's no way I'm going to do this. Like, this essentially breaks down into like you're going to have a couple big aha moments at the end where you're really going to know which direction to take it. I don't know if there's any other way to put it, Dan.
No, I mean, honestly, it's our events are built in such a way that it helps people start practicing or start doing, right? Like we're not, I don't try. My goal isn't to teach you a whole bunch of content that you're never going to use, but for the people who are interested and the people who think that this might be a model for them, like by the end of that event, where you're going to have a fundamental understanding that you could walk out and get started that day with wholesale. Like that's my guarantee, is you will have a fundamental understanding to the point that after that event, you would be able to immediately go start picking up wholesale accounts.
Exactly. And you don't have to quit selling books. You don't have to quit selling on Poshmark or eBay. You don't really have to do anything different. All you really have to do is shift around maybe 5 hours a week to get started, to put in some of this upfront legwork to build the foundation, right? Just similar to like anyone who sells on eBay or Amazon. It took you probably a couple of weeks of studying, getting set up, learning the items, figuring out the thrift stores, going around, driving. Then you set up an income stream essentially for life. Anyone who learns thrifting, you've got an income stream for life. You're never going to be poor because you're always going to know how to find items. And the same with wholesale, but the difference is you're putting this upfront time aside to learn wholesale, which is it's an income stream that can make you money without you having to always exchange your time. So you're learning this system, this process for being able to build relationships with wholesalers to land accounts, which again, like my buddy, how I first learned about it, he landed one wholesale account that was making $2,000 a month. Now, Dan and Dylan, they're on a whole nother level. They have wholesale accounts that do almost $500,000.
No, we have that. But I mean, like one of our students, her first wholesale account, her first one, she was at the point where, she was about to give up on the process. And her first wholesale account makes her $250,000 a year profit. Like, and
that's great.
That's not everywhere, but the point is, that was her first one. That was her first one. It wasn't like she had a ton of experience and stuff like that. What she did is she went and she helped a brand solve their problem. And they said, you know what, Cheryl, I want to work with you. So like those things are out there. And if you solve people's problems and get involved, you can set up an incredible business really quickly.
Yeah, Dana is saying, I'd like to just find a couple of items to supplement the eBay and antique mall business I have. So I have some steady income that doesn't require marketing and listing. That's exactly
what happened for me. Honestly, that's how it happened for us. Is we didn't have, there were no illusions of grandeur when I got started with wholesale. It was, God almighty, if I could drive 3 days less per week, like consistently, that would just be a huge thing. I actually didn't expect that wholesale would be the biggest part of our business. And in less than a year, it literally tripled it. Like that's the point is, you're often looking for this kind of thing. And that's how I would encourage everybody who looks at wholesale and wants to start adding it to it. Don't stop what you're doing. Like, don't just stop cold turkey. Like the point is with wholesale accounts, like every bit of research that we do online. I do on Amazon.com, right? Every single bit of it. So that means if it's 1 a.m, I can be researching a wholesale brand and I can send them an email, right? So it should never interfere with what you're already doing. Like the point is you can work wholesale into your business whenever you have the time and do it one account at a time. And that's exactly what we did. We were doing over $1 million a year with retail arbitrage, but made that transition to wholesale. And it was not by stopping retail arbitrage immediately. It was just one account at a time.
Yeah, and the final thought before we get going, and again, we're going to go so much more in depth in the wholesale virtual event on July 8th, is this should be everybody's end goal, right? It doesn't have to be wholesale, but it should be wholesale or private label, or it should be building your own brand, or it should be starting your own estate clean out company, or something that allows you to get tons of inventory coming to you. Something that allows you to be able to build out a system. Like if you had an estate clean out company or something like that, like you could have employees going out and you have marketing that lands deals, bringing it to you, or wholesale, the same thing, your own brand, the same thing. That should be the end goal. Everybody should be selling on eBay, thrifting, books, all that stuff to build up enough capital to eventually invest it into something that you could turn into a business, that you could build systems out to be able to scale and leverage. So I'm not telling you that wholesale's the only be all end all for everybody. But it's probably one out of 3 or 4 real serious options that I would look into for anyone who wants to, who here has a wife or a husband that says, are you going to be doing this for 10, 15 years? You're just going to be going to thrift stores. And they have a good point at the end of the day, because it's only going to become more competitive and more difficult over the years, because anybody and everybody can do it. So hopefully you found value in this video. Dan, appreciate you coming on. And I'll be over at the free training. I'll be over at the free event on July 8th as well, taking notes, learning. I'll be in the comments. So if you guys haven't already, be sure to sign up. The link is below, and we'll send you some reminders about the event that's coming up, and we'll keep you in the loop. So yeah, appreciate everybody. Thanks so much. And if you have any more questions, drop a comment down below. And with that being said, appreciate you, Dan. Thank you so much for coming on, man. And we'll see you guys July 8th at the wholesale virtual event. It's free. See you there.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks, Dan.